Hi, this is an overview of how to participate in the ashcloud Apocalypse risk mapping event in November 2015. I'm going to be talking through this particular map general layout of the app, which is designed specifically for use on tablet devices, though you can use it on computer, but do test it through fully first. I find it works fine on Chrome, less well on Internet Explorer, for example, but it was designed for the tablet use. This other format here, where you can see the tabs going across the top, works better on PCs and Mac computers. But this version I've designed more for tablet use. So there's a couple of introductory pages explaining about the event and mega eruptions, and then this third tab down has the actual form in. I find on tablets, depending on the browser you're using, such as Safari, that I can't scroll down like I'm doing here on the computer. It's kind of stuck. A good tip here is to use this link here, which will open it in a new tab. So that means you've got the web app here with all the maps in one tab and the form in another tab. That means should the web app sort of have a problem or crash, hopefully your form is still working and fine. So this form you're going to be using to enter data for the event. You're going to be looking at the impacts of a mega volcanic eruption that could happen somewhere around the world, perhaps not that close to you, maybe close to you, but would still have implications on life around the world. So the idea here is you're going to be entering data into each of these variables to examine the risk to your local area. So the first one is called distance from the mega eruption. You enter a score between 1 and 5 for that. So if you're flipping back between this form and the maps, it says to go to page 4, which is the tab or button 4 here, distance from mega eruption volcano. So generally this will work better on a computer, PC or laptop, but if you are using a tablet, then as I said, this one should work, at least though it might be a bit slower. So the idea is you can see the different mega volcanoes around the world. For example, this one called Campe Flegrei in near Naples in Italy, and you've got a fully interactive map. You can zoom in and see the nearest mega volcano to you. They've got buffer distances from being close to the volcano here to being further away. So the yellow zone, for example, here where most of the UK is between 1,500, which is the maximum distance for the orange zone, and 3,000 kilometres away. So you're going to be affected to a minor extent. And if you look here on the key and scale here that we're using, you can see here that if you look at your home location, let's put in an address. Use my school address. Good to always use your zip code postcodes for this. Then you can see your location. It tells you maximum distance 3,000 kilometers away. So if I read here, I can see that I'm in a low risk area, but live between 1,500 and 3,000 kilometers away. Maximum distance 3,000, so up to 3,000. Therefore I'm going to enter a score of 2. So I go back to my form and I enter a score of 2 in there. Height of land is another factor there, so I go to the next page, which shows height of lands around the world. Again, for each of these maps, I've zoomed to my home location. I'll speed up by not doing that this time and just show you what happens when I click on the map. I'm going to get the elevation in meters. This particular point I've picked here is quite high, 2,437 meters high, and I look it up on this scale. The higher you are, the colder you are, and if a mega volcano erupted and global climates got even colder, then colder places would become more extreme. So anything above 400 meters I put here as very high risk. So let's say I lived here. Obviously I should zoom in to find out the exact location, 64 meters, so I would be in this score of 2, for example. So I'll use 2 for this example. Keep going back, the climate score. I look at my current average yearly climate in my location. I've got a map of the average world temperatures here, and if I lived near the equator around here, then I would be living in a zone of 30 degrees average temperatures, and a drop in temperatures of a few degrees might not be that severe, but if I lived in a colder zone, then a few degrees colder could make the climate much more harsh and severe to survive in. So I look up my temperature, again zooming in to the correct location on the map, using the zoom buttons, or better to always just type in your postcode address to zoom in quickly on these maps. And let's say I lived in this zone 10 to 14 degrees, I'd give myself a score of 3 for this one as a medium risk factor. Then next one is population density. on these maps. So I'll look at the population density for my area. This is the most detailed population density map in the world, and let's zoom in this time. Just type in a place name, but as I say, you would be typing in an exact address for this, but so you can see it more clearly. And if I click on the exact space where my home address would be, then I could see how many people lived in a 250 metre square in my area. This says 617, so it's quite a crowded area. Somewhere over here a little bit less, 30 people and so on. The areas with no data, you can see here, have less than 25 people per 250 metres squared, so a very low risk. So that would get a score of 1, but let's say I lived in an area with 61 people per 250 metres squared, then I give it a score of 2, and so on. If you think that the data is incorrect here, like there's a gap perhaps here, and I think there are people living, then just use the next nearest square to you that you think represents the correct sort of crowding population for your area, because there are a few gaps in this data, but it's being a sort of global resource. So going back to my map, let's put a score of 3, let's say in here. Level of wealth. Now this is the one that I need to build this app for, specifically for tablets, because it wasn't working very well on the tablets with the PC version. So for this one you need to click on a particular area in order to load the map, because it couldn't cope with all the maps in one go. So if I load this one, it's got UK data in, and if I put in my school address and search for that, then it will zoom to the correct location. So that's what you do. It's I can see I'm in a sort of green zone here. Average income per person 18,000 pounds per person per year. If I zoom out, I can see some of the variations in my region, and I use the colour coding to check what score I give it. So blues are going to get a score of 1, the very wealthy areas, green score of 2, yellow score of 3, orange score of 4, and red score of 5 for your areas. And you read that again, so say you can click on the area to get specific detail, but you're using just the colour coding for the scores here. If you were in the USA, for example, you'd click on the USA, you'd load up a different map so that this works on tablets, and again you'd zoom to your home location in order to pick out the score details. And here you can see New York, for example, and some blue areas here, wealthy areas. So I go back to my map here and I give it a score. I can't remember what that was, but I'll give it 2 for the moment. Always in these ones, 1 would be the best in terms of the lowest risk, lowest impact, and 5 would be the worst for any factor. Next factor here is traffic chaos. If the volcano erupted and created ash or freezing conditions, it could cause traffic problems in an area. So again, you type in a postcode. I've just got it centered on Bath for the moment, but you can go to anywhere in the world. You click on this locate instant button, or just type in a code. Let's put that school code in again so you can see the effect. Zoom to it. It then says set as instance, so I do that, and it then produces a grey circle of 3 kilometers, so I can see within that area what the traffic conditions are like, and I read which description best fits my conditions. So I can see there's a little bit of red here, mostly yellows and greens, and one circle here, which means there's an instance. So that I go to this one critical instant nearby, so I use the score of 4. If it didn't have that instant in, it's traffic showing serious delays, so I can see some red lines nearby. I'd use that one. If there wasn't any red lines and it was going fine, I'd use perhaps the yellow and orange lines dominate this area, and so on. So I just have to kind of judge which description best fits this, and always use the worst score possible. If there is, let's say, a critical instant within my area, for example, I use this one here, so a score of 4. So go back to this one, traffic chaos, score of 4. So keep switching between the form and the maps. The next two don't have any maps with them, they're just questions that you answer based on your experience. This one's a questionnaire about asthma for any breathing difficulties you might experience from the ash fallout. So let's say you experience mild or infrequent asthma, you'd give yourself a score of 3 for that one. And the next one is straightforward as well and has no map in it. It's your judgment of your community spirit for how people would help each other in your neighbourhood nearby. So you would judge it against these different criteria which you read through. So let's say you think you've got good or reasonable or poor community spirit in your area, and you'd give yourself a score accordingly. So let's go for 3 for example here. And then finally, emergency hubs or centres nearby. So on this map here, And what you're looking at is whether how far you are living away from an emergency centre. So again, put in my postal zip code, or have to zoom if it doesn't work for some reason in your area. So I've got a postcode here in school, and it says set as instant. I do that again. This time I've got a 100-kilometre circle, and I can see all the dots nearby of what are emergency hubs or centres. This have been set up in airports to supply food and medical supplies, for example. If I click this one nearest to me, it will give them all in order. I can see the nearest one to me for emergency centres for this instant is 5 kilometres away. Can you see that just down the bottom corner here? An old RAF base. I can ignore all the others, though if I'm interested I could scroll across to look at information about them. But I'm interested just in this one, the number 1. So I look here and see how far away I am, 5 kilometres away to walk in worst conditions, 5.91. Should be this one, 5.99 I should say here, would get a score of 3. Quite a long way to walk if the roads are closed, petrol's expensive perhaps, things are blocked in order to get help and medical supplies. So I give myself a score of 3. If I live very close to an emergency centre, I get a score of 1, or too far away, a score of 5. So that's how this one works. If it's not working, you want to locate manually, just click on this tab here, click on a location, and then click on nearest to me, and it does the same thing. So let's say I give myself a score of 3 on this one. The overall score just helps you see your area quickly. It will be calculated for you automatically later, but if you want to do a quick total, you have to add up all these scores, 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3 and so on. Here, add them up into a grand total and add that in. So I won't add it up just for speed here, but let's say I got a score of, I don't know, 29 here. The maximum would be 45 for a score of 5 on each of these 9 factors. The last thing you need to do is locate yourself on this particular map. So again, using the same, let's put that, same postcode, sorry I was just trying to do a postcode search, not the automatically locate. And again, now you're not going to locate yourself at the school unless you live in a school, but you should be locating yourself where you live. You can move the point to correct location, doesn't be exactly on your home, just offset it slightly so the data is anonymised a little bit. But let's say I lived in this particular area up here. It should have located me, and then I click submit entry at the very end, and it says submitting at the end. It should give me this green thing saying it's been submitted successfully. If it doesn't work, it gives you a red thing saying not successful. Just try resubmitting it a couple of times, it should work. When it has resubmitted, you get a new blank form, but you don't need to do it again. So you've got your total data, and the very last map here should contain all the up-to-date information on anyone that's entered data. You should have thousands of students around the world participating in this, so if you're being part of this event, it should be quite exciting to see your data alongside all the others around the world, and see which areas would be most affected and which areas would be least affected should a mega volcano erupt, at least using this kind of approach methodology. So that's an overview of how to participate. This one is particularly designed for tablet apps, tablet uses, rather than web, but you can, as you can see, use it on a laptop computer instead. But the other app here that I mentioned before is designed more for computer use. It works a little bit slicker on a computer, overall a bit quicker to use. So thanks a lot for taking part in this event. I hope you enjoy it, find it interesting, and learn a little bit about the world around you and the geography around you, and what would happen should an apocalyptic event such as the mega volcano erupt. My name's Raphael Heath. I'm the Head of Geography at the Royal High School, Bath. Thanks a lot for taking part and participating in this event.